All right, guys. So for my podcast, I decided to do a financial discourse community, and I thought what's more appropriate than interviewing my dad, asking him questions. He's got plenty of experience. He's been in the finance world for over 20 years, and he's worked for companies like Merrill Lynch. He worked for Merrill Lynch for about 15 years. Morgan Stanley. He works right now. He owns Stevens Wealth Management under Raymond James, and he's a CFP. So we are going to ask him some questions and just dive right into the financial discourse community and kind of pick his brain. All right, we're back. So let's dive in. I'm going to ask him a few questions, and we're going to kind of get into it. So first off, the first question is, what is a CFP, and how do you become one? What hoops do you jump through?
So a CFP is a Certified Financial Planner designation that is controlled by the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards. It is a certification that is controlled by their board, and they decide who gets it. And the way you become one is you have to take a series of classes and pass each of those classes, take an interim test, and then there's a comprehensive test at the end. It's actually a very rigorous 3-day test. And then at the end of that, if you pass the test, then you can become a designee, and then you pay an annual fee to be able to use their credential that they control. It's just a certification that makes sure you have at least a certain level of knowledge that you can apply to the various fields of financial planning, such as just general financial planning like budgeting, insurance planning, whether you buy term or whole life or different types of insurance, not only life insurance but long-term care, key man disability insurance, retirement planning, 401ks, estate planning, making sure that wealth transfers from one generation to the next in an appropriate way. It is a designation that encompasses a very broad area of study and makes sure that you have at least a minimum knowledge to be able to help clients in those certain areas.
Why did you choose the designation of CFP?
Because it's legitimate. There are some designations that you can do on a weekend. And I don't want to name a bunch of them, but there are some that are not rigorous.
Right.
That you can just do it if you want to have a, hi, I'm Jack Stevens, and have a business card that has some letters behind your name.
You can do that, and it's easy.
You can do easy ones.
Okay.
The CFP designation is not easy. Of the number of people that take it every year, about half fail the test, or they don't get the designation. So you can do, it's essentially seven different classes of coursework. Take the small test, pass each class, then take the comprehensive test and still fail. Anyway, I chose it because it's got teeth. It's a real designation. It's not something you can do on a weekend.
So it puts merit behind your name.
Right.
It's something credible.
Right. And other professional people that you work with know that.
Right. So my understanding is, since I'm doing this as an education and I'm going to Appalachian State for financial planning, for the classes, you don't take the classes through university. It's an actual licensed test. So it's similar to a bar exam for an attorney. So what you do is, it's not actually a degree or college degree. It's a set of classes you take outside of your degree.
That's right.
To get the CFP certification.
That's exactly right. It's a controlled designation. Then they control it. So the CFP Board of Standards takes the group of people that take all the classes and the coursework that are not necessarily at colleges. However, some colleges do offer some of the course standards as part of their degree program. It is something outside of that. You can take the classes without having you don't have to have a banking degree. You don't have to have a degree, but you do have to have a 4-year degree before you can enroll in the classes.
So you technically you don't even have to have a finance degree to technically be a CFP, but it probably helps
it does
exponentially.
It does. The domain knowledge required to do the job is broad, and so having a finance degree helps, but it is not, for this particular designation, it's not a requirement. They do require a 4-year degree, but they do not require a finance degree.
Gotcha. Okay, so now that we understand what a certified financial planning license is and what the certification means, what is the benefit of being a CFP to a client versus something else?
Okay, so for a client, life gets complicated, right? Everything from getting married and trying to provide for kids, so you may need some insurance. Do I need term insurance? What do I need? To getting those kids educated, do I use a 529 plan? Do I use a Coverdell educational savings account? How can I use those different accounts? To retirement planning, right? How do I use a 401k? Do I have an IRA? Do I have a SEP IRA because I own my own business, or a simple IRA because I have an employer that is not a big company, so they have a simpler plan?
Right.
All these things at each one of those stages of life. Lots of financial companies are out there that make things complicated because there's so many people that have those needs that lots of people compete in the marketplace with different products. And so having the designation at least gives you a broad spectrum of knowledge, so that when you come across people in different stages of life, you'll have a set of tools in your toolbox to be able to identify their needs and help them through whatever those particular issues are at that stage.
So being a CFP helps you as far as, setting people up for success in the future, whether that be short-term or long-term with retirement, or, just getting your stuff together and organizing your money and investments wisely.
The investments are the key, the cornerstone of what I do, but that's only one part of the process. Making sure investments are set up well is important, and that's what a lot of us do. However, you also have to have things like, you have to work with attorneys when it comes time to make sure that people use trusts or have true large wealth issues, that they're trying to make sure that wealth passes from one generation to the next. That's one area. Taxation. What happens when you have somebody that makes a lot of money? Doctors, dentists, lawyers that might have certain situations that you're making sure that not only income planning is good, but that you can sit at a table when you're helping a client set up those things, that you can work with an attorney, that you can work with a CPA, and you have the knowledge or the skill set to make their jobs easier, and that adds value to the entire process, not just for the financial planner, but for everything that the client will need, from working with attorneys to making sure that their bills are paid online in an efficient way.
Right. Say you have a client and your client has $250,000 and you say, okay, I can help you with that. Or you have a client that has $10 million. What to you is more, at the end of the day, rewarding to help work with? Okay,
so a lot of financial advisors are trained to have developed spiel and jargon and vocabulary because they want to work with more wealthy clients. And the truth is, that's great. Making the money is great. It's more important that you see the impact and add value to whatever it is that the client is trying to do. I can't control. Some days if somebody walks in, I'm retiring from my job and I've got $2 million in my 401k. Can you help me with that? Sure. Is that more as far as a sociology impact, as far as a life impact? That's much less important than making sure that somebody at the other side of the spectrum is making good financial decisions too. What I have found for me is they are equally rewarding. So I only have 3 rules for myself. The first rule is that somebody has to have a definable thing that I can help with, meaning they're at a stage, one of those stages in life where I can use my training. Right. Are they trying to plan for education for their kids or grandkids? Are they trying to make sure their retirement or 401k is set up right? Are they trying to set up an estate to where their estate passes to the people that they want in an efficient way? I can't control which of those people I come across on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of people have a number. I don't. Right? So my 3 rules are: you have to have something I can fix, you have to be nice, and whatever the advice is that I come up with, you have to take it. Because unless I've missed something, unless I didn't learn enough about them to know what the difference was, if I do the thing and it comes down to it, they don't take my advice, then I failed.
Right.
Because the only way they wouldn't take the advice, if it's mapped out for them why they should take it, is if I didn't understand what the need was to begin with.
In the world of finance, why did you choose to become an advisor at first and then become a planner?
Honestly, I did it because my family didn't have one. I came from a family where, so my father was a salesman who did great, earned a great living. My father-in-law was a great businessman and had a really good sense of how to do his particular job. There was no one that they sought as a trusted advisor to get financial advice from. Both of them had people that, hey, rolled over the 401k, and they had people, no one they truly trusted, and I didn't think that was the right way to go about it.
Right.
So for me, it was, I chose this path, one, because I have skill sets, and I like numbers, I like the math, I like the financial planning process, but more so, my family didn't have anybody that I felt like they had a trusted advisor, and I thought that's the way it was supposed to be.
So trust is important.
Oh yeah,
100%. Anytime you're dealing with money, especially
right.
if you're taking care of your family and you're trying to find someone to help organize it.
Here's a cheesy line, but I says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They will not trust you with their money unless you get in and they can find a core competency and a trust that will make them share. You're asking them to get financially naked and talk about all the mistakes that they've made in their life with their money,
right.
And you're going to help them fix them. Right? You don't just walk up to the street and reveal all the mistakes you've made with not saving enough money financially.
Right.
That's a big trust is the biggest part of my job.
So I know from growing up with you at the house and talking about it and just kind of picking your brain, there's essentially two parts to a client. You have the money aspect, so doing the job and actually helping them with whatever they need as far as money management goes. And then you have the, human aspect, such as, sending Christmas gifts or, sending out cards or checking in on the family, seeing how people are doing. What in your job, what do you enjoy more of? Or do you enjoy them both pretty equally?
I actually think it's the same thing, right? So my job, the process that I go for each client is about the same. You have to establish the client. What's the scope of work? What is it that I'm going to be doing? Then you have to gather information.
Right.
Then you have to present. Hey, here's what I found. Here's a plan I'd like to present. Here's how we're going to implement it. But then here's how we're going to monitor it over time to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing together, that we stay on course to whatever your goals are.
Right.
In all of that process, my favorite part is the client contact after the fact, after you've done the engagement. Oh, you're going to roll your 401k over. Here's the mix of investments we're going to have that are geared for making sure that it's the right thing, the right risk for you and your family for what you need the money to do.
Financial planning is not a short-term thing. You don't just go to a financial planner and sit down and say, okay, well, I need you to do this for me, and then we're done.
Right.
It's a yearly, it's long-term.
Right. There's no, so for me, if somebody called up and said, hey, I've got $10,000 extra and I hear that GE is going through some things and I think GE is going to be a great stock, I want you to buy $10,000 worth of GE for me. Can I do that? Yes. I can hit the button and buy you $10,000 worth of GE.
Right.
There's no value in that. You can go online and pay $6 for a trade somewhere, and if you know that's what you want,
and you can do it yourself.
I don't have a value. There's no reason for me to do it.
Right.
So for those people, or if that's what the need is, you don't need me.
Gotcha. We're coming around to an end. Do you have any tips or tricks or stories for investing?
You want to know how to get rich the quickest way I've ever heard? Everybody wants to know how to get rich, and in my job, I can tell it to you.
Okay.
All right. So people don't know that, so Wall Street started, so they used to call it was the apple tree game. It was a bunch of wealthy landowners that actually met at a certain tree. It was an apple tree.
Right.
And they would actually exchange parts of their businesses. Oh, you have a cotton thing and you can sell me some cotton and I can make clothes that could, for my workers. And it actually started under an apple tree that people would exchange shares of their different businesses.
Right.
And that's how it started. And the story goes that there was a young boy who came up from nothing. And he was essentially a beggar on the street.
Right.
But one day, by an apple tree, he found an apple. And he took it home, and he shined it and polished it. And the next day, he sold that apple for a penny. Right? And he took that penny, and he saw an apple cart. And the apples were selling for 2 for a penny. And so he took his penny, and now he had 2 apples. And he took them home, and he shined them up. And the next day, he sold his 2 apples, and he got 2 pennies. Right? And the next day he bought 4 apples, and the day after that 8 apples, and on the 5th day, his grandmother died and left him $1 million. And that's the fastest way I've ever heard of anybody getting rich. But the story highlights that it's purely nothing but work, hard work, a repeatable process, and do it over and over. And your money is the same way. All of the work you do, at the end of the day, part of your money should be yours to keep.
Right.
Controlling it and making sure that it's doing what you want for the future is just about the most important thing. And to close out a question you asked earlier, honestly, you actually said it well. Your finances are not one digestible meal. It's not something that you show up, you fix your finances, you do it, and then you're done.
Right.
It is something you have to nibble at for the rest of your life.
Right. We're going to go home and eat dinner now, but I hope y'all enjoyed the video. That's just a short dive into the finance world and specifically the CFP designation. But thank you, Dad, and yeah, I hope y'all enjoy it.